we're good on that. All right, so, all right, our interest expense on long-term debt. So that's gonna be the interest rate times the average debt during the year. So what is our average debt during the year? Well, we are looking at our long-term debt as being 120,000. Okay, so we ought to just be able to take, so last year, so we had 11,880. Okay, so we're going to take our interest, well, our amount of long-term debt that we've projected, which is the 120,000, and we're going to multiply by the interest rate on long-term debt, which we have up here. Okay? So we've got our interest on long-term debt. Okay, our interest expense on the line of credit. Okay, we're not putting anything into the line of credit yet. That's zero. But, you know, let's just leave it zero, okay? The next column will do some of that. So our earnings before taxes would be equal to our EBIT minus our interest expense.
Can you go back to the formula for the interest expense?
Yeah. Okay, so our long-term debt that we forecasted down here is 120,000. Okay, and the interest rate we had up here at the top as 12%. Because I'm giving up at the top, you have to go back up to the top and get it. All right, so our taxes are gonna be equal to our earnings before taxes times our tax rate, which we have to go back up to the top and get it, 25%. By the way, why 25%? What's the corporate tax rate? Okay, so we've got our taxes. So we take our net income, our EBT minus our taxes gives us our net income. All right, so our common dividends are growing at 8%, so that's going to be equal to the previous number times 1 plus the 8%.
I think you did. Yeah.
I didn't do the right number.
You timed it.
1 plus, oh, I didn't. All right, so our special dividends are 0 in the preliminary forecast. Okay, so our addition to retained earnings is our net income minus our common dividends minus our special dividends. It's gonna be-
Ours says, oh, that's the dividend growth rate. I think you used the sales growth rate. The dividend growth rate should be 10% up top.
Okay, good catch. Okay, everybody catch that? This growth rate was set up top as 10%, so it shouldn't be the 8%, it should be the dividend growth rate, 10%. All right, so we're seeing an addition to retained earnings that we're predicting of 18,894. All right, so then we come back down here we've got all these items in the preliminary forecast. So we're down, we now have the addition to retained earnings, so we can take and put the old retained earnings plus the addition to retained earnings that we predicted here. We can now get our total common equity. That's our common stock plus our retained earnings. So then our total liabilities and equity are going to be equal to our total liabilities plus our total common equity. All right. All right, so now we're going to come down, let's see, which are we gonna do first? I think we do, let's make sure we do this in the order they told us to do it. Okay, so we forecast for preliminary balance sheet and income statements. We didn't include line of credit, all right. After completing the preliminary forecast and the balance sheets income statement, go to the area below the preliminary forecast and identify the financing deficit or surplus. Okay, then use Excel's if statements to specify the amount of any new line of credit or special dividend. Okay, so we should go on down. All right, so our increase in spontaneous liabilities, accounts payable and accruals. Okay, so where do we get that? Well, okay, our increase in accounts payable, so it went from 31,861 to 34,409. Our accruals went from 27 up to 29. Okay, so we're just going to put that in here. So equals, okay, our increase in accounts payable, which is going to be the new level minus the old level. Okay, then we're going to add the increase in our accruals. All right, does that look right? Yeah, looks about right, okay. Our increase in long-term bonds, preferred stock, and common stock. So our long-term debt didn't change, right? Our preferred stock, we don't have any preferred stocks, that didn't change. Our common stock didn't change, right? So none of those changed. So that's just zero. Okay. Plus our net income in the preliminary forecast minus regular common dividends. Okay, so equal our net income minus our common dividends. Okay. Net income minus our common dividend, make sure I get that right.
Is it the net income minus the common dividends, or the change in net income minus the change in common dividends?
Okay, so now think about that for just a second, because that's a great question. What's the answer? Is the funding coming from the change in net income, or is it coming from net income?
Net income.
Yeah, it's coming from net income. So yeah, it's just the net income minus the amount paid out as dividend. Okay. Because that's essentially cash increasing versus cash not increasing. So we've got this plus this plus this. Okay, minus our increase in total assets. Okay, so our increase in total assets is equal to our new total assets minus our old total assets. Okay. So we're then going to take our increase in financing, okay, minus our increase in total assets, and we show a deficit. Okay. So that means that we're going to have to show this as a line of credit. Okay, so our line of credit that we're gonna have to draw on is going to be 18,611. Got it? All right. All right, I'm not going to start into the final forecast, but I think you've got the general idea here. So, if you run into problems, I'll be around most of tomorrow. Today, I'll be around late afternoon, okay? I've got a noon class and a 1:30 class, and I'm about to go to an 11 o'clock meeting.